Have you seen this man? This is Aron Ra. You may recall a recent video that I did in response to him where he defined faith in a way that's foreign to Christianity and the Bible, and then persisted in relentlessly beating that straw man into oblivion. However, his video that I responded to was a bit dated. It came out about 5 years ago. And given that his definition of faith in the video was so obviously wrong that anyone capable of using Google could learn in 5 minutes, I figured that he may have dropped his faulty definition by now. I had hopes that by now he would have abandoned his terrible definition and refined his understanding to something a bit more accurate. I was preparing to see an evolved and more objective Aron Ra, so I bet you could imagine my shock when I saw him recently debate my friend Michael from Inspiring Philosophy. As we'll come to see, not only did he quote some of the exact same lines from his 5-year-old video nearly verbatim, he also still unflinchingly holds onto the same demonstrably false definition as if his reputation depended on it. Well, I for one sure hope that it doesn't. To make matters worse, when pressed, Ra was unable to quote a single scholar on the planet that agreed with him on his definition of faith, which led for me to conclude that if faith is truly what Ra defines it as, then Ra has a lot of it, and uses it more often than a modern day leftist uses the words racist and phobic. Yep, that's a lot. To be clear, each day I find more and more atheists that are subscribed to this channel that are far more reasonable than some of their less free-thinking bedfellows. The stubbornness of some of the other skeptics, who don't seem to be all that skeptical of whatever their favorite atheist YouTubers say, in my opinion, really do the atheist community a disservice. The not-so-free-thinking types of atheists, which we know now tragically struggle with the condition known as ARCS, will consistently change agreed-upon definitions of words in a heartbeat if it means maintaining their lack of belief. But anyways, in the debate, Michael and others obviously corrected Ra on his faulty definition during the debate, and Ra's emotional response once again adds even more evidence to the growing hypothesis that atheists who suffer from ARCS simply hate facts and will do whatever it takes to hand-wave away scientific, historical, and even definitional facts that go against their views, while at the same time accusing Christians of doing what they've been doing all along. Now, here's where things got interesting. So during the Q&A portion of the debate, my friend Eric Hernandez asked Aron a simple question about his 20 years worth of studies concerning the definition of the word faith, and that didn't exactly sit well with Aron Ra. Rather than me walking you all through it, I've asked Eric to put together some quick clips of the interaction and also for him to walk you guys through what happened. So, Eric, meme team, you guys ready? Then let's go!
Thanks, John. So here's what happened. So recently there was a debate between fellow apologist and friend of mine, Michael Jones of Inspiring Philosophy, against atheist Aron Ra on the topic, is Christianity dangerous? To no surprise, Aron gives and starts talking about his typical definition of faith.
Faith is a belief that is not based on evidence.
And is something he's said in other videos of his.
Faith is an assertion of unreasonable conviction assumed without reason and defended against all reason.
Now, despite the fact that Michael already corrects all of these mistakes in his opening speech,
and I can find no scholar that specializes in Koine Greek who says this is what the Bible teaches,
which we will get to later, Aron sticks to his definition and brings this up again later on in the debate.
Believing things that are not evidently true, which is the basis of faith.
Now you have to keep in mind that Aron prides himself on his intellectual integrity and how much research he's done, and he doesn't miss an opportunity to remind us that
I've spent 20 years as an atheist activist. For the last 20 years, because after 20 years of research, so 20 years of...
And then even earlier in the debate, he said...
See, I can't believe something unless it is supported by evidence.
Right.
So, given that Aron is still using this definition, although Michael has corrected it, and given that Aron can't believe something unless there's evidence for it, Michael rightly presses him on the question, asking for any evidence for why he continues to use this definition. So let's see what Aron says.
Do you have any scholars that specialize in Koine Greek to say pistis means denying evidence or reason?
Scholars who say that say again?
Pistis, the Greek word we translate as faith, means denying evidence or reason.
And we have demonstrations of that.
Do we have any scholars that say this is how it's defined?
I have no idea if we have scholars
Okay,
that
so
say that.
that's a no.
I know that we have missionaries who say that that is what it is.
Okay, are they
That we have,
experts?
well, I'm sorry,
Are
what?
they the experts, though?
I don't know.
Okay, how is the word pistis defined in Aristotle, Antiphon, Diodorus, Plato? Have you looked into that at all?
No, I haven't looked into how Aristotle
Okay,
interpreted
so
that.
then
No.
have you done a good analysis of what the word actually means in the New Testament then, if you don't actually look at the Greek word?
So now I'm beginning to wonder that how in 20 years of this intellectual research that he's done, how has he not understood the correct definition of what faith is, both historically and biblically? And Michael's not the first one to point it out.
And every Christian I've ever debated this with tells me that I'm misdefining faith.
Now, the title of the debate is Christianity dangerous? But the thought I began to have in my mind was, if Aron is so adamant about this definition, yet he has been corrected on this many times, then perhaps it is his own research that is perhaps flawed, biased, and dangerous to the pursuit of truth. Hence the question I'm about to ask.
This question's for Aron. You mentioned that in 20 years of rigorous research, you found no evidence, I think you said, of Christianity. But
No, that's not what I said. I said in 20 years of arguing with Christians that they told me that I'm wrong about the belief in faith, that faith is not a belief that is not based on evidence. I say that faith is a belief that is not based on evidence. They all say, oh yeah, we have evidence. I say, okay, fine. What is it? And I've always specified that I'm looking for scientific evidence. They ask, what evidence would I accept? I said, how much evidence would you accept? They would ask. I said, I'll take anything that qualifies as evidence. Any body of objectively verifiable facts which positively indicate or exclusively concord with that particular position over any other. In 20 years,
I think I get
without
it.
exception,
Okay.
there has been no one to present any scientific evidence that actually indicates the Christian God, or indeed any God, or in fact anything supernatural at all.
Okay, I appreciate the clarification.
Yeah, that doesn't change the question I'm about to ask.
So, you mentioned that in 20 years of rigorous research, you found no evidence of what you're looking for. But then when Michael pressed you on naming just one scholar who defines the word faith in the way you put it, you couldn't name one. So my question is, could it be possible that your research is maybe flawed, biased, and even maybe dangerous to the pursuit of truth?
I have conducted this experiment, as I explained, over and over and over and over again, having this exact conversation at least once a week for 20 years. Not one Christian ever has produced evidence. He didn't either, nor can you. No one can. It doesn't exist.
That's not the debate
I demand
tonight.
that anybody in this room who calls yourself a Christian, if you think you have scientific evidence to indicate you're God, bring it. You ain't got it. I win.
I'm sorry my question upset you, but that wasn't my question, but I'll move on. Thank you.
So he apparently didn't like the question, apparently didn't like being pressed in that way, but notice he never answered my question. It was a simple question. He holds a position and is continually corrected on this position, and when I call him out on that, rather than address the actual question, he gets upset, gets very emotional, starts yelling, points at me and says I can't produce the very thing he's asking for, when in reality the thing I'm asking, because it's my question, is how is his alleged 20 years of rigorous research not flawed, biased, and dangerous to the pursuit of truth? So let's do a play-by-play and unpack this a little bit further.
As I explained, over and over and over and over again, having this exact conversation at least once a week for 20 years. Not one Christian ever has produced evidence. He didn't either, nor can you. No one can. It doesn't exist.
That's not the debate tonight.
So the first thing he does is change the subject and immediately dodge the question entirely.
If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a...
Question from Eric Hernandez.
What?
Because remember, my question was not, has anyone in 20 years presented any convincing evidence to you that Christianity is true, but rather, how is it that in your alleged 20 years of research, how is it that you can continue to misuse and misdefine the word faith despite being corrected on this numerous times? But again, dodging the question, he continues on his rant.
That anybody in this room who calls yourself a Christian, if you think you have scientific evidence to indicate you're God, bring it.
Now here is where it really becomes evident that his perspective and take on studying and doing research is very biased, flawed, and dangerous to the pursuit of truth. As an example, he asked for scientific evidence for God.
I win.
No, sir. You are wrong.
Now the problem here is that God, if he exists, would be a non-physical entity, and science, by definition, is a discipline which studies the physical world. So to say that there is no scientific evidence for God, and therefore he probably does not exist,
I can honestly say that I know there is no God.
would be the equivalent of saying, because my metal detector cannot detect plastic, therefore plastic does not exist. Science is a great and wonderful tool for discovering things about the physical world, but has absolutely nothing to say about the non-physical. So to use science to discover something non-physical or to investigate the supernatural would be like using a metal detector to try and detect plastic on the beach. It is simply the wrong tool for the assessment. So yes, his alleged pursuit of truth is clearly biased and flawed. After all, it's a simple question, and there was no need to change the subject or dodge the very question. He could have easily corrected me by simply answering the question, but he didn't, and I wonder why.
But if you can't pretend that things are true when you know they couldn't possibly be, and you say, as I do,
it doesn't exist. Bring it.
when defenders of the faith realize they have no valid or reasonable argument, they try to end discussion with an escape excuse.
It doesn't exist. I win.
But this gets even worse when we look back at the debate.
Now, Aron has said that if he is presented with new data, he will change his mind.
Faith is a belief that is not based on evidence.
And trust me, Michael presents a lot. First, he goes to the original Greek word itself.
First, faith in the Bible is the Greek word pistis, and I can find no scholar that specializes in Koine Greek who says this is what the Bible teaches.
And goes through many Bible passages which uses the word and demonstrates its proper context. And he even goes as far as to survey the word and how it was used throughout history.
I looked up how the Greek word is used in Herodotus, Diodorus, Aristotle, Xenophon, Plato, and many other ancient Greek works. And it is never used to mean an act of denying evidence or rejecting reason.
So, is Aron being honest? Is he seriously pursuing truth? Will he change his mind after being corrected here? No.
You can show me another definition that is more accurate. I'd be happy to adopt it, but after 20 years, nobody's been able to cough one up.
Yeah, I mean,
Really?
Dr. Leon Morris, in the Dictionary of Paul and His Letters, says faith is understood more or less as a response to revelation. It says faith means commitment or assurance, not blind belief.
So Aron has no excuse to continue to use this misinformed, erroneous definition of the word faith. And even if he had not been corrected here in this debate tonight, let us not forget...
I've spent 20 years as an atheist activist for the last 20 years. 20 years. Because after 20 years of research... I must have heard this nonsense 100 times. So 20 years of...
Being in your career for this long, you have no excuse for not knowing this subject any better.
The truth may set you free, but first it might piss you off.
Bring it!
So, is Aron Ra's research flawed and biased?
Well, I am not biased, and you can test that.
And is it dangerous to the pursuit of truth?
I say that faith is a belief that is not based on evidence.
And I can find no scholar that specializes in Koine Greek who says this is what the Bible teaches.
How does believing things that are not evidently true not dangerous?
All in all, Aron has constantly assumed this definition.
Which means there's no reason to believe it at all.
The first one who said this was me.
And we know that nothing pisses him off more than when people don't believe in him.
It doesn't exist. Bring it!
How is that not dangerous?
Evidently so, based on his own words. Now, despite all this, I still think that the greatest irony and, quite frankly, embarrassment for him is that the very thing that he cannot stand, that he disdains, that he is fighting against, is the very thing that he seems to be demonstrating and portraying in his very own character, behavior, and even pursuit of truth through his research.
Christianity's greatest danger of deception is undeniable.
So Christianity is dangerous because it's allegedly deceptive.
Pretending to know things you don't know, dishonest though that is.
And pretending to know things that you don't know. Okay?
There's a definite danger to your ability to reason if you've been conditioned that you must believe man-made mythology of impossible absurdity and for no good reason, even when all the evidence says otherwise.
And I can find no scholar that specializes in Koine Greek who says this is what the Bible teaches.
What evidence? Oh, I don't know. I don't have any. Period. Done.
Christianity is dangerous in that it provides cover for idiocy, dishonesty, paranoid delusions, and serious psychiatric disorders.
No one can. It doesn't exist. Bring it.
Now, I could seriously go on and on about Aron, how he's inconsistent and at times seemingly even disingenuous. But what has to take the cake is his very definition of faith.
I say that faith is a belief that is not based on evidence. Believing things that are not evidently true, which is the basis of faith.
Which means by his own standards and by his very own definition,
All religions, every one of them, right, cites facts that are not facts.
I have seen no data that this is what actually is taught within ancient Greek literature.
While pretending to know what they don't know.
Do we have any scholars that say this is how it's defined?
I don't know.
I can think of no one else that exemplifies this definition of faith but himself.
Faith really is pretending to know what you don't know.
Ironically, by his own standards, Aron Ra is a man of faith.
Faith is the most dishonest position it is possible to have.
Indeed, a man of great faith.
So any belief that requires faith should be rejected for that reason.
And as he once said,
People of strong faith refuse to reason, reject reason, and will not be reasoned with.
sounds familiar.
It is never wise to believe anything claimed by another without question, without reservation, or without reason.
There's questions for Aron.
Having no reason to believe something is a pretty good reason not to believe it.
But then when Michael pressed you on naming just one scholar who defines the word faith in the way you put it, you couldn't name one.
So John, the next time you hear Aron Ra say that faith is a belief without evidence, what are you going to say?
What do you mean?